And welcome to another episode of the Mountain Ground Podcast. This is episode 11, and following on our art of fast packing, we're switching over to bike packing. And for that, we have Iain Peterkin joining us in the studio this afternoon. It will be myself, Peter, and Nicolette chatting to him. But let's just hand over to Iain, and he can kind of give us a lowdown on why does he love bike packing, a bit of his athletic background. But yeah, Iain, over to you.
Hello, Peter, Nicolette. Good to see you all virtually again. In essence, most of the time I would describe myself as a ultra runner. And if you give me half a chance, you'll find me on the trails, in a mountain, just having a bull. But tonight's episode, I know, is about bikepacking, which is quite in contrast with what I usually do, where I usually go as light and fast as possible, where in bikepacking I load a hell of a lot of stuff on my bike, really heavy, and then just go slow and enjoy the views, enjoy the environment around me, enjoy being in places that I don't often get to be. And I think the purpose is basically just that, to kind of break away from what I usually do, the fast pace and there being a deadline or a finish line, to just being and enjoying and having a bit of freedom and a kind of an open mind space to process everything that's been going on and will be going on. Yeah, sounds way out.
So Iain, where did this journey start for you? I mean, everyone has a start to these journeys they go on. So where does yours start?
So long ago, I fancied myself more of a cyclist than a runner, and very, very young, my mom did a bit of a bikepack tour through Cape Town, like a 4 or 5 day, just seeing the sights of Cape Town. And I think that's kind of where the idea was born. And it just somewhere along the line, I just thought I'd really want to cycle down to Cape Town in my lifetime. I've done that, and it's just not, it hasn't ticked all the boxes. So now I'm just bikepacking whenever I get the chance.
Like, where do you draw your inspiration from to, one, decide what route you're going to go on, how long it's going to be? Is it accumulation of the issues you need to deal with when you go on your bikepacking trips, or is there some science behind deciding how long you're going to go for a bikepacking trip?
I think absolutely zero science, because it doesn't make sense to do that on a bike, if you think about it sensibly. My latest bikepack trip through the Cederberg, well, firstly up the west coast and then through the Cederberg, was mostly inspired by having run a bit on a railway service road along the west coast and thinking this would be a really good place to bikepack. And then also a hiking trip and a bit of a training weekend in the Cederberg, where I looked at those roads and I was like, this would be an amazing place to just wild camp, bike pack, and just to take a few slow days and really just enjoy it more primarily than being in a car with an aircon and all your comforts with you. Like just bikepacking slowly through, chatting to the locals, stopping at the local shops, sleeping under the stars. I drew inspiration from that. I don't even think inspiration is the right. Like when I was there in a car, all I wanted to do was be there on my bike.
And Pierre, that's also like the Cederberg. That's an area that you're also fairly familiar with. Did you track Iain on his journey during those passes and that. Just some background on that. So, Iain, you did 1,000 kilometers last year or the year before in around Cape Town. It was the year before, right? That you.
It was December 2021.
Oh yeah. So that's last year, and that's the Cederberg trip that he's referring to. But I think that hits quite home for you, Pierre.
I wouldn't say I'm that familiar with the Cederberg. I know I've run there once or twice. It's a really it's an amazing area. Very special. Like so, to make our country so beautiful. It's just the diversity of it. But I have done a adventure race through that area, and the reason, I did kind of tap into Ian's fast packing trip once or twice because I saw that photo of him like just sitting under a a bridge and looking fairly broken. But it gave me a bit of like few flashbacks to myself and Nicolette did a adventure race, the Expedition Africa Namakwaland. And we had a long bike trek. I think the one leg was about 220 kilometers. And then there was another like 70 and a 90. And it was long hours on a bike. And obviously we were racing and a lot of it was through the night and, and sleep deprivation of like, I don't know, like 40 hours and stuff. So I don't think we had the same experience as Ian, but I can say I really loved that kind of riding. Like just, it was just open space, long straight roads, and look, we had the odd like hiker bike thrown in, but we went through Wuppertal, those areas, and when Ian told us about that trip, it really brought back some quite nice flashbacks and some like quite sore flashbacks. So there'll be a few questions I'd like to ask him just about like, how do you look after yourself over, a week of cycling, or, because obviously like what Ian said, there's like zero science in it, but in theory, yes, you're still looking at what setup of bike do you have, how do you look after, from a saddle sore point of view, all those kind of things. I think sometimes we do see it as just natural as endurance athletes because we just know how to manage our bodies, or we become so accustomed to managing our bodies that we think it's, I guess, just standard. But I think a lot of people are looking at bike packing, and in adventure racing, we do often carry like heavier backpacks, and we don't have all the pannier bags and all the fancy tube bags and stuff that is on the market to put on your bike. And yeah, so I'd like to hear from Ian's side. What is the difference between having an 8 kilogram bag on your back and having no bag because you could maybe stash it on your bike itself? And just the little intricacies that he's learned over the years, because I know he cycled from Joburg to Cape Town as well. So he's obviously learned a few things over the years. So some insight on that would be quite insightful, I guess.
Okay, no, to be fair, I maybe underplayed the science part of it. So I think my biggest bike pack trip was from Joburg down to Cape Town. But that was, at the time I did that, already something like 7 years in the making, of doing shorter, more manageable bike pack trips, and then being confident enough to embark on that specific trip was a 2,200 kilometer, because I took the long way around, obviously. And one of the big lessons in the previous trips was carry as little weight on your body as possible, because carrying a 8 or 12 kg backpack on your back does cause saddle sores, and it makes short days very, very long. And I think the other big thing is Coke is amazing to lift your mood on a bike pack trip. So every small town I hit was kind of a 2-liter Coke, just gone instantly. And like on the fourth day, you just by default buy 4 liters of Coke everywhere you stop. Because 2 liters just doesn't cut it. And then just quality of food. I think having real food along the way has always just brightened up my day. Trekking up the west coast, every single place I could I was just cramming calamari and chips into my face as often as I possibly can. And beer. Every single night was 2-3 beers. And that, I just think, lifts the mood. There's an old saying, and I think the adventure racers will agree with this. There's nothing as good as an ice cold beer directly after ice cold beer.
Well, I guess in that valley it's only going to be cold for so long, eh? So it's going to be, well, there's nothing better than a hot beer after your cold beer.
I don't even drink beer, but that doesn't sound nice. Hot beer. So Iain, I'm guessing that, when you go on these bike packing trips, you're diverging quite far from your athlete, coach, running, nutrition side of things, that you're just eating good whole foods, proper foods, drinking water, Coke, and that your engineered sports products are staying at home for when you get back and you resume running.
It's a complete different ballgame, I think, bikepacking. I approach it, it's a hell of a lot of work to turn off the athlete in me that just chases a finish line. So on the bikepacking trips, like an average heart rate on a day, I ignore it. I actually look at it 2-3 weeks after the bikepack trip. But like average heart rate on a day would be 112, 120-ish, which is, you don't need expensive engineered sports products for that. I remember quite distinctly when I cycled from Nieuwoudtsville to Calvinia. I had a horrible day. It was, I think, 45-50k long day. I did a wild camp next to the road the night before, ran out of water, didn't really have much food, and the last 10k's into Calvinia was basically just survival. And my priorities getting into Calvinia was sugar, caffeine, some more sugar. And then I went to Die Blauwe Narkie, which is the greatest restaurant in Calvinia. And I was like, listen, I'm
also the only
far
one.
ahead of... pretty much. So I was like, okay, so the last 2 days I was way under budget and I'm catching up today. So I think I had a 400 Rand bill that night. Starters, mains, dessert, more dessert, beer. I was just like, I'm gonna eat until I cannot eat anything more. And I felt better the next day. I don't know if it was mental or, well, good nutrition, I think, as well. But I think you guys also find with your mountain missions, you also do stray away from just pure sports nutrition to going to actual better whole food, which I think mentally puts you in a better space.
But do you think like something like a long bikepacking trip, and Pierre, you'll probably join me on this philosophical conversation, but do you think something like that teaches you a bit about your body and how it consumes energy and really listening to the needs of your body in that moment? Because I mean, like you do go through, I haven't done a long bikepacking trip, so I'm probably out of my depth, but I would assume that you'd be drawing on different things. You know, you've said the base is your Coke, but then again, like I'm sure at some point you crave salt and all the other minerals and, vitamin B when you have your beer, and maybe some carbs as well. And some proteins as well. Like, do you think, and Nicolette, that's actually an open discussion for you as well. Do you guys think, having now obviously the scientific background to nutrition, and do you think there's some value in learning something while you're doing a long distance bikepacking on how your body consumes fuel and, listening to your body?
Yeah, from our side, definitely. I mean, with our fast packing trips, or even when we guide groups of people on hikes or runs, it's quite obvious that, if you're not pushing to your personal maximum limit, you definitely don't need as much in the way of calories as you would if you were, really pushing your own intensity. So I suspect it's the same with bike packing. Like Iain said, a heart rate of 112 is, well, for a good athlete, it's quite, it's like normal. You don't need that much more than what you would eat on a normal day. So yeah, you might have bigger meals and more snacks, but you're not having to consume, 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So I do think that, doing these long trips, it definitely shows you the difference between, your slow, long endurance events and your fast, high intensity events. And it proves that you need a very different amount of carbohydrates or calories, and therefore you need quite a different approach to your nutrition as well.
Yeah, I must say, to like my 2 cents from the side, if I have to also think of long mountain stuff, like this weekend now, I just did a 26-hour thing in the Drakensberg where, we were going at a relatively slow pace, but just very consistent. And I actually just wrapped 4 slices of pizza from the night before into a little Ziploc and chucked it in my pack because on these, when you are doing longer, more normal kind of stuff, I guess it's nice to eat more normal food. So I guess, on your bike packing stuff, it's you don't actually want that racing element to it. You just want kind of normality. So, well, eat normal food, and I guess pizza is that for me.
Quite specifically, and Peter was there when we did our 13 Peaks challenge. My biggest fear was not the distance. My biggest fear for our group was sense of humor failing because of not having enough nutrition. So every single time we stopped, I was handing out salami and cheese zombies to everyone. I think Peter still remembers that quite fondly.
Iain was selling it. That was part of his pension scheme. He tricks you. He goes on long runs with you, and then he starts selling his nutrition at the back end when you really need it. How much did we pay? 50 rand a broodjie. I mean, Iain, we're talking about food, but maybe a good question is, where do you actually pack all your food? I mean, we've chatted about the panniers and the bags and the bag on the back, but there's a lot of cool things out there, gadgets, I would say, where you can strap a little bag for your food on your handlebar, and I'm sure they've integrated frames where you can put in some Mars bars or bar ones. There's a lot of tech going into this bike packing at the moment. For those of you who don't know, there's this website, www.bikepacking.com, it's straightforward, but there's loads of information on routes and gear there. But what's your top 3 go-to pieces? Yeah, Pierre, well.
Sorry, just before Iain goes in there, Peter, you've got a very high-tech question there. But before that, I would love Iain to, those who haven't seen his bike on, Instagram and stuff. Iain, first give us a background on your bike, because apparently it's been held together by all the stickers you've collected since you were 8 years old.
Maybe you can put your food into those cracks in the frame.
Okay, so the bike I bike pack with, it's called Frankenbike because it's basically built from parts of probably about 4 different bikes that I've owned over time. But it's a small framed 26er with the longest seat post you'll ever see. And then my pannier bags are very old school, so all the weight is on the back wheel, which I do not recommend at all. It makes the handling horrible, and makes downhill, the mountain pass going down into Wuppertal, a nightmare. But that's all I have at the moment. And I just have the philosophy, if you wait for everything to be perfect, you'll never get anything done. So just go do it regardless of not having the perfect gear. Make it work. But also build the experience. Learn from the mistakes. And I'm having a really cool frame bag specially made for my bike, and I cannot wait to put that picture up on Instagram. It's going to be really epic.
Just one question: can you still get new tires for 26-inch mountain bike?
So far I haven't struggled. In the beginning they were really cheap because all the bike shops were trying to get rid of them. Now they've gotten really expensive because I think I'm on the wrong side of the the supply and demand of that at the moment.
Yeah, but I think that's really cool, and that's actually, exactly what we said in our fast packing podcast last time, is it doesn't matter if you have hiking boots or running shoes or a 20-liter pack or a 35-liter pack. Just take what you have and go out there and experience it, because you don't know what you need until you've actually, given it a bash and enjoyed the experience. And then from there on, you can start to make small adaptations, but don't let your gear be your limiting factor. So that's really cool.
But adding to that, there is some very interesting gear out there, and I would really like to know, Iain, your top 3 must-pack gear that you take on your bike-packing trips. It's okay, you can start with vluggrond mokka-pad. It's okay, we accept that.
So non-essential gear, definitely my mokka-pad.
Knew it.
Once again, keeps the spirits high. My puffy, my goose down puffy, for the cold days, but then also it folds into its own little inside pocket and becomes a pillow. So dual purpose. And geez, I've got a really, really cool, really lightweight tent, I've gone bikepacking without it, but just having it there just adds to the comfort and the experience so much. So yeah, I think that's kind of my top 3. And obviously food, drinks, and a gas stove just to to prepare food is also a definite must-have. And chamois cream. Jeez, how can I forget that? Definitely. And I'm gonna go off topic here a little bit. So with my bikepack trip down to Cape Town, I would stop over at farms and go, "Hi, can I please pitch my tent on your lawn?" Knowing full well I don't have a tent with me. But then, without fail, every single time they'd go, "No, you can't. You have to come sleep in the spare room."
Goes back to yeah, now all the listeners believe me when I say he sold broodjies to us on the 13th of
I do think I think there's really no essentials, nothing that you have to take along. Some spares, maybe repair stuff, but that being said, in all my bikepacking kilometers, which I think racks up to about 6,000 or 7,000 k's of bikepacking, I've never had to repair a tire. I've never had a flat. I've had 0 technical issues on all my bikepacking trips. I've broken a spoke. I've broken one spoke in all of that. But also then I take my bike for a proper overall service before every single long trip.
But Jan, you're not one of those. No, go for it, Pierre.
No, and from it's obviously you're backpacking by yourself, and if you do say have to come off, do you have any like basic first aid stuff? Do you have any protocols, I guess, that you do put in place? Do you use a tracker? Do you just, even if you don't use a tracker, do you do like say, okay, cool, I'm between this and this spot, just if something does happen? Because that's just a method I've been incorporating into the mountains. In the beginning as well, I also I never wanted people to know where I move, but then just purely from being involved with a lot of stuff, I now try to like drop more breadcrumbs. Just if a search happens, it doesn't happen between Joburg and Cape Town, but it happens between like, I don't know, Ladysmith and Three Sisters. Like it's just to narrow that out. Is it like some basic advice that I guess you could even if you don't incorporate it into your bikepacking, but that you think could be just good for someone that does go out there and they maybe not as experienced as you?
So before my big Cape Town trip, I spoke to a friend of mine who did a bike pack to Swakopmund, and he said one of the most helpful things that he did is he started a WhatsApp group, which as he went along gained momentum, and as it went along, everyone is like, no, I know somebody who's close to there. Check in with them, and they might be able to offer you a place to sleep and a meal. And after all the farm sleepovers, once I hit the coast, because I was bikepacking in December, every single night I slept with somebody that was on holiday along the coast that I knew. So sleeping on a proper bed, having a nice warm shower under a duvet, also just really recharges you before the next day. So I think a safety aspect, definitely having like a cool support group that know what you're up to, where you're going, where you are. And I think also lifts the spirits. With my last trip, I didn't post on the WhatsApp group because I did need a bit of time in my own head. Had a few decisions to make, had a few things to work through. And I didn't want that distraction with that. So everyone that I wanted to speak to, I did speak to, and no one else really.
It's cool because exactly to that, like when we do go into the mountains, I limit the field of people that actually know what we do to a very specific amount of people because yes, we go out there to, clear our minds. We go out there to, for very various reasons. And yeah, like it's nice to be able to make of it what you want to. And it's nice that you do these trips kind of deciding, what do I need from this currently? And you can just have that. It's that freedom, and that's beautiful. It's so cool to talk to people that enjoy that freedom and to plan something I guess you realize what you need as a person, and you come back and you probably found so much more than you thought you were going to get out of it. So on that note, I kind of want to ask you, is there anything that you are planning for the future? Like apart from, we're not going to delve into your like intense like racing ambitions and your sub 7 cameras for next year and that kind of stuff. But on the bikepacking front, if you have to go from a more, imagine Into the Wild documentary was going to been made about you. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, from a cool trip that you've envisioned, what would be your penultimate trip?
Well, you brought up the Into the Wild topic. It was on my playlist for my December bikepack trip, on repeat, just over and over and over again. But no, definitely
Veda is pretty cool though.
Yeah, no, it's such an awesome soundtrack that. But no, so I've actually sat down at some stage in the last 12 months and I realized that I have to. I don't really have much of a choice in this. I've got to do Cape to Cairo. And I put a deadline, I said, before I turn 40. So that leaves me with 6 years to kind of process what needs to happen and needs to fall in place for that.
And in what fashion would you like to do that? Like, do you have a time-specific goal? Is it a kind of into the wild kind of objective, a personal growth experience, I guess, if you want to go like complete hippie on it? But because that's naturally what I kind of tend to. But then also the competitive side, and all of us are always going like, okay, but how fast can I do it? Or, what intricacies can I work into the trip to make this trip more special than anyone else that has done a Cape to Cairo?
I'm definitely not going to aim for any records, because then you just follow a highway and you empty yourself. And I think I actually want a more fulfilling journey than that. So I want to be in a position to be able to take the long way around. So in my mind already, I've got pictured going up through ice, through Namibia, cutting through Botswana, going via Lake Malawi through Tanzania, and actually stopping. I'd want to spend some time in the Rift Valley, and obviously then, I don't know, have some running kit couriered up to me, spend a month or two just running with those guys and seeing what that's all about. Because obviously I don't stop being a runner. And then maybe just going on from there and see what looks interesting. But then having the freedom, and that's why I said before I'm 40, because I'm not gonna just jump into it to get it done. I wanna be in a position where I can experience it and just take 6 months, maybe take a year, maybe, I don't know, just just see our continent, just see what is out there, because I think we've got such an amazing continent. We've got such an amazing country. I've seen so much of it on a bike, and I think going from desert to tropics to the Great Lakes to the mountains of the Rift Valley, Kilimanjaro, all of that. I'm going to stop now. Otherwise, it's going to be a 2-hour-long podcast.
But that's a good question for yourself, Pierre and Nicolette. I mean, I have no doubt you have your own ambitions on this front, like anything adventure-driven, long distance, I think is up your alley. So is there any adventures that you guys are planning after listening to Iain, or maybe before listening to Iain?
At the moment, our sights are set mostly on the Drakensberg, so not too far from home. We still have a couple of routes that we need to complete there in a timiest fashion. We do have time goals, unlike Iain. We've spent a lot of time in the Drakensberg and we know it really well. So I suppose just exploring is no longer our primary goal there. But yeah, look, there's a lot of mountain ranges in Africa. Pierre will probably know better than me the specifics. I think up in Ethiopia there's something that he's quite keen on, but for now we still achieving that with what we can closer to home. So yeah, Drakensberg it is.
To tie into that, like I want to keep it topic specific on bikepacking. Like I think Lesotho is just an amazing country to go cycle. Their roads are much quieter than ours, in good condition. There's some pretty wild dirt roads and jeep tracks. So I think that is a country I would love to just explore from a bikepacking point of view. And also then to go up in Africa and cycle around, because I do think you lose an element when you're in a car. You know, when you're in a car, you're quite isolated from everything else, the world around you. Where if you're on a bike or running, I think you're much more open to the kindness of other people. I think they associate with you more. But if you're just going through there in your bakkie, I think you've distanced yourself quite a bit. So the way Iain wants to do it, I think is really beautiful. I think he will be able to live the cultures out there a bit more, to be seen more as a human, as not just someone behind a window that's got an aircon on the inside. So, I think that's incredible. Like I've thought before about I really want to climb Mount Kenya. And I thought about to send, gear up via courier, and then you kind of get on your bike and you ride up. And I think just to get there, I think you'll be accepted so much more as well. So if you want to go run in Kenya or the Rift Valley, and you get there self-powered on your bike, I think you'll just be accepted into the community. Where if you just, I guess, fly up, get in a rental car and drive there, you're just another tourist. So I think to experience the country and the world in a, self-powered fashion or self-propelled fashion it's really powerful. But anyway, let's go a bit north, Peter. There in Ireland, because I know you cycle a lot. I watch you there on Strava. What are you building up to? Because I know you love your gear. You want all the nice stuff to put on that bike and everything. So, but it's amazing. It's incredible. How we all are individuals and what drives us as humans, and what inspires us. And I always love listening to your stories, because you always have you're that typical person that says yes to everything, and I wish sometimes I had more ideas like you. So brief us a bit on what you've got in the pipeline.
Are you saying, Pierre, that my gear is driving my ambitions?
Well, the amount of chats we've had over gear, we need to see the adventures.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been looking at something. It's called the Highlands 550. So it's like 550 miles. So it's roughly around 800 kilometers. It's up in Scotland. So I visited Scotland probably a month ago just to run around there a bit, and I think it's such a nice country to go and bikepacking. And to be honest, I miss like the weather conditions and the dusty roads. I do really miss it, but I've also gotten used to the cold and wet weather, and it's become a bit of an addiction to some extent. So every time I read a trail and it says something like boggy or very technical sections, I can just see it, like I can just see the fun that you can have on those trails. And so yeah, that's going to be my next ambition. I would have attempted it not too far in the future, but my plans changed a bit. I got the gear now, so I'll figure something out to go and try it out, and I look forward to it. And so I think that in the short term is what I'm going for. But I'm definitely sticking on the mountain bike. I'm not. I like that. It makes me happy.
Cool. And on that note, Iain, are you looking at a gravel bike? I guess you're not, because you're having custom made panniers and frame bags for your Frankenbike. But is like a slick kind of gravel bike in the pipeline for you?
So I was taken off my bike by a car in the beginning of 2017. And since then I've sold all my bikes except Frankenbike. So I've, to a certain extent, lost a hell of a lot of my love for cycling, but just Frankenbike just gives so much more than any other bike I've ever had. And just the nostalgia, I can't sell that bike. It's the cheapest bike I own because it's just built out of parts I found lying around, or good source really cheaply. But no, so probably not looking at a gravel bike anytime soon. I look at them in magazines, like often, or on the internet, and they are really lovely. But just like I can't justify the money for something I'll use not so often.
Yeah, so I have a question, but I don't know, from listening to your whole, bike setup and the old bike and the nostalgia and the kind of holiday bikepacking trips, I would expect your answer to be no. But is cycling something you incorporate into your training on a weekly basis to kind of keep your cycling abilities, not like top notch, but just to keep those cycling muscles activated? Just from an athlete point of view, how much bike or cycling cross training do you think is necessary for someone who maybe has a bike packing ambition in the future?
So with my Joburg to Cape Town trip, I did absolutely zero cycling training, but I just started out really conservatively. The first 4 days, just really, really far below capacity. And somehow I just got fitter as the days went past, and by the end of the tour I was like really just confident and strong. And I remember going into Gordon's Bay, a guy on a road bike came past me, and I was like, morning, and he didn't greet me back. So I was like, okay. And I got into his slip, and I sat there all the way, I think like 15 k's into Gordon's Bay. And as he turned off, I yelled, okay, cheers, have a good day. I just think it doesn't take all that much just to be a little bit friendly. But yeah, by the end of that, I was very cycling specific strong. But I think off a really good running base, because that year I did run my marathon PB, I did a long, like 50k trail race. So the engine was there, but on topic, off topic, I do think incorporating cycling into run training is excellent. It's not something I do as often as I should or want to, but just kind of taking time getting time on the legs, but taking that impact off the legs is excellent cross training.
Yeah, that's kind of my opinion as well. Like it's great if you do have the time and you're in a base training phase that you can incorporate some cycling into your weekly training, and then when it becomes really the crux of your running, if assuming you have a running race, then you need to focus on that. But for as long as you can, just keeping those cycling muscles kind of ticking over. And then, yeah, the classic answer, I suppose, to any really like long multi-day event is that you tend to get stronger as you go along. But it's really nice to hear it firsthand.
Okay, that's it's really, I think we've gone a pretty like a full circle. It's always nice to just chat to fellow athletes, share stories, and hopefully some of the listeners can get some good insight from this. And I think most people that do listen to the podcast gonna know us. So please send us messages with regards to any questions or, topics you want to discuss in the future, because this is really what we want to grow, is like as much as we get value from talking to different people and to each other. So we want to provide value to everyone that listens to this podcast. So I think we've kind of run out of time. I know Peter has to go watch at the Band Film Festival, so I'm pretty jealous because that's always a very a very very fun evening. We'll get the brief from him next time. But Iain, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. If there's anything like last words you want to leave the listeners, please I guess sign off for us.
No, look, I'm generally quite an introverted person until you talk to me about bikepacking or the latest trail running shoes. Then you've signed yourself up for like a 2-3 hour conversation. So you guys picked the right topic. And then to the listeners, if you have any questions, please engage. Like I said, it's a chat I love having. So send me messages, Instagram, Facebook, Strava, whatever. Just email me, whatever. It's something I love speaking about. If you want to share your experience or a route that you've done or an idea that you have that you want somebody to partner on with you, please talk to me. And guys, thanks for having me. And gegrond, geez, thank you for the coffee. Like in the ABBA song, thank you for the music, but just replace music with coffee.
Oh, thanks, Iain. It was really nice catching up with you again, and beer for you and Mountain Abandon. Like, it's always nice to hear. It feels like it's been a while since we've had a good chat up. Chat up. Glad we had a good chat. But it was really nice catching up with everyone today.
Cheers, guys. Keep well. Thanks so much. Until next time, eh?
Bye.
Cheers.